Welcome back to the Travsessed Podcast. We're your hosts, Kim and Aaron. We are healthcare travelers and the creators of Travsessed, and we are back on the mic after being in the wilderness and the craziness of Patagonia, and we're going to talk all about that on this week's episode. Basically, the trip from hell.
Flight crew, please prepare for departure.
All right, so we are live from El Chalton.
Yeah.
Chaton.
El Chalton.
Not, there's no L, C-H-A-T-E with a hyphen in.
Oh, really? I've
There's
been
no
saying
L.
it wrong the whole time?
El Chalton.
Oh, okay. I had no idea.
Or just Chaton.
Chalton. Okay. We are in Argentina. And
23rd country.
We'll kind of get into that later, but we just wrapped our 11th Travsessed trip and our third time in Patagonia hiking the W Trek with a group. And this trip, literally every single thing that could have gone wrong absolutely did.
Well, it's funny because, like you said, it's our third time in Patagonia, but it's our first time experiencing like that true Patagonia. Just kind of like we always heard of it and we could see glimpses of it on our other two trips.
Well, let's start from the beginning.
Yeah, but I'm saying this one, Patagonia at its finest.
Yeah, Patagonia like kicked our ass day after day, just absolute like relentless, non-stop, which we've experienced it before on our other trips, but just nothing like we experienced on this trip. So let's go back to the beginning. Okay. So the trip, so everyone was flying in.
April 2nd.
On April 2nd, but they were like flying, they were leaving on April 1st, okay, which is April Fool's Day. And it's funny because all of them were literally on the same flight from Atlanta to Santiago, and then Santiago down to Puerto Natales. Yeah. Which is like so crazy, right? Like that never happens, but they were all together. So April 1st, we're like in the WhatsApp, like, okay, we're on our way, we're leaving, blah, blah, blah. We're all talking. And one of the guys was like, oh, like I better not get an April Fool's joke. Like, like basically like begging for an April Fool's joke. So we thought it would be funny and it came from 2 weeks prior.
Yeah.
One of our guides on the trip posted this crazy video of him hiking with a group in a blizzard, an absolute blizzard, like on the W Trek.
Couldn't even see the people behind him.
Yeah. So we were like, ooh, okay, what if we say, oh my gosh, you guys, like, so sorry, but they've closed the W Trek due to weather, and like send that video.
Well, and this took some, planning. I basically screen recorded that video and then made it look like it was a text from Jorge, who's our guide, saying, hey man, I'm on the trail. We're just going to do the trail again with your group, but I want to let you know that this is the current situation and the W's closed.
Yeah, or we said sections of the W is closed.
The majority of
And basically, like, we weren't really going to be able to do the W Trek. We're like, don't worry, like, we'll figure it out. And then people were like, okay.
We let it ride. Like, we had lunch, we ordered our food, we ordered our wine, and then we kind of let it sit for a little bit, and then...
Well, and I think that's just telling, too, is, like, we said that, and then people were like, okay, like, we'll figure it out, like, just from the beginning, right? Which, again, this Patagonia trip, it's a hiking-focused trip, right? We did some other things, but, like, it is about hiking the W Trek. That is kind of the main hoorah, right?
It's the main attraction.
So to not be able to do that, you're like, what the heck, right? So we let it kind of go, and then finally we were like, just kidding, April Fools, ha 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 ha. Okay, thought that was super funny. What we did not know is us doing that would literally set the tone for the entire trip.
Well, we did, because we actually made a comment of like, what if we just put that into the universe?
Yeah, and I think us saying that put that juju out there, and then the universe is like, okay guys, you want to fucking play? Let's go. Because
Shit got real.
We played hard. Like that got serious. So we started with that. Okay, now they're flying down to...
Well, we wake up that morning and we're like all excited. Kim and I have like our plan. We have everything set up. We went and got like bottles of wine for like a welcome drink, and then like we had like the hotel like went over to the restaurant and asked to borrow wine glasses, and it was like we were setting up, we were having our final lunch before the group comes in. There's like all this excitement, and I look down at my phone because my phone is tracking the flights, and it says delayed 3 hours.
And I want to say too, that first day when everyone comes, right, there's this anticipation, and we're always, you know, kind of nervous and excited and just kind of like, all right, let's get everyone here, let's get this started, because once like we all come together and we meet and we get the vibe and we're like, okay, cool, like let's go, right? But it's like that lead up of that anticipation. So we woke up kind of like, okay, it's go time, like everyone's coming, they're all coming at the exact same time.
We'd been there 2 days prior.
Like we were ready to go. Okay, so you see that the plane's delayed.
So I see that. So the thing is Kim and I will, to the day that we die, say that. I mean, are you not agreeing that one day you're going to not be here?
I hope not. I hope I'll be here forever.
Okay, me too, buddy. But I think like Kim and I will say that Sky Airlines in Puerto Montt is a black hole. Like nothing ever happens well when Sky Airlines is flying through Puerto Montt.
Yeah.
So if you are coming to Patagonia, book it on a day that LATAM flies directly from Santiago to Puerto Natales. Period, end of story.
Or you're fucked, basically.
Basically.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think anything happens well.
No,
because
there's always an issue.
We took Sky direct from Santiago to Puerto Natales. Perfect. Easy flight. No problem.
It's only when it goes to Puerto Montt.
Puerto Montt is a black hole for airlines.
Yeah. And so
particularly Sky.
Yeah. Because I don't think LATAM flies there. I think it's just Sky. LATAM's always direct. And so they were on their way. So landed in Santiago. Everything was fine. And then they're boarding their flight on Sky. Like, okay, we'll see you in a couple hours, right? So they had a layover in Puerto frickin' Montt. And I guess the weather was crazy, like the wind and stuff, that they attempted to land twice. And they were like, we like literally almost touched down, and like the plane just shot up back into the sky, which is funny because we've seen that happen before, like just watching planes take off, and I'm always like, oh my God, that's freaking crazy. Like I can't imagine how scary that would be. Like you think you're landing and all of a sudden it just like shoots back up. So they said that's what happened twice because the plane could not land. And so basically they attempted to land twice. They could not land. So they rerouted back to Santiago and basically canceled the flight to Puerto Natales. And they all had to go back to Santiago, could not make it to Puerto Natales, which was funny as Aaron and I are there waiting. And it was the most beautiful day.
Gorgeous.
We're like, what the
They
heck?
could have just kept going and landed and got the people off and then went back to, but I don't know how that works for the people trying to go to Puerto Montt. But
yeah, I think they said they even asked and they were just like, no, like, but yeah, they could not come to Puerto Natales.
So one of the flight attendants said the weather's worse in Puerto Natales, and we were like, no.
Right, which we were just like, okay, well maybe it is like up in the clouds or something, because here, I mean, that was one of the most beautiful days we had the entire trip. The sun was out, it wasn't that windy, it was just one of those perfect days. So we're like, what the fuck? So it got canceled and they had to stay in Santiago for that night. So that was technically the first day of our trip where they come in, we do the trip briefing, we have our welcome dinner, we get to know each other. Like that's a really important day. The way that we plan our trips is like we always want that to be like the bonding day, if you will, of like we're all getting to know each other, we have questions, and it just kind of sets the tone for the trip. And then the next day was the day that we are going to La Peninsula.
Which is a showstopper of this trip.
Which is one of our favorite things that we do, and you have to take a boat there, and it's just like, it's an estancia, and we horseback ride, and we have lunch and wine. It's just such an incredible experience.
It's another really good bonding day before we hit the trail.
Right.
And you learn a lot about the local area.
Right.
Which makes it even more fun going into the park.
Which is why, like, the way that we create trips, they're designed intentionally, right? The itinerary is not something we just slop together. Like, it has a flow. It has intention behind it.
It builds on each other.
Yeah. So it's like, okay, cool. They come in, we have our welcome dinner, we get to know each other. The next day, we go do something fun together, still connecting, getting to know each other, learning about the culture in Patagonia. And then we gear up to start our hike, right? So it's kind of like that was the flow. So because their trip or their flight was canceled, we were missing the second day as well, because they weren't getting in now until 2:30 or something, I think, the next day.
Well, then it was 10:40. So then we were trying to plan, okay, can we still make La Peninsula if we get picked up at 12? And then so we were going back and forth with that. But then we found out that the 10:40 time that they were told they were going to land was not true, that it was more 2, but it still was registering as 10. But then like the Puerto Montt flight that they were on wasn't even registering as a real flight.
Yeah.
Like it was a mess.
So we really didn't know at that point what time they were coming in. So we couldn't plan La Peninsula.
So on the other side, Kim and I were like, ducks in the water, like looking smooth on the top, but like underneath our feet were kicking of like, we had like multiple plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D. Like, what time do we have the driver go to the airport? We're not sure when they're landing. Okay, cool. Like, I can't follow this flight. I have no idea. So it was crazy, but it, I mean, to be honest with you, and spoiler alert, it all worked out for that day.
I mean, if you call that working out, I mean, yeah, like it was absolutely not what we thought it was going to be, because, well, and to go back for a second too, like, because they were all together, I was so happy that they were together, because they all went to dinner in Santiago. So Aaron and I have a place that we love called Dondo. It's amazing if you're ever in Santiago. So we're like, okay, you guys go, because that was the night of our welcome dinner. Unfortunately, Aaron and I couldn't be there, but we set them up where they could go to Dondo. They could have dinner together. We sent some money so that they could just enjoy a dinner together without us being there. So it was funny because they sent us a picture and a video of them having dinner, and then we sent them a picture and video of us having dinner. So it was almost like this virtual welcome dinner, even though we were not together.
Right.
But they ended up having a really fun time, and that was like bonding for them, and they got to know each other. So it worked out there, but also like we weren't there. So
kind of sucked.
Anyways, yeah. So then they come the next day, and again, that day, originally plan A was that we were going to La Peninsula. We were going to have this really fun day together. And then we were going to come back and we have our hike briefing where we meet our guides. We go over the entire hike, all the things for the W trek with our guides. And then that night we pack and we get ready to start the W trek the next day. But because they came in late, it was literally like they arrived. I think it was like 4 or something.
3.
Like, yeah, but by the time they got there, they got into their rooms. We had the wine. We had like a quick kind of briefing, but then we had to go meet our guides and basically get right into the W trek.
Yeah.
There really wasn't any.
No, because the day you meet your
time.
guides, it's like you have to get your dry bag ready that you're going to take on the trail, and that's got to be 5 kilos max. And like, so there's a lot of back and forth between taking things out and getting it set, and they are very hardcore on that. Like, it's 5 kilos max,
and they weigh it every day.
They weigh it every day, and so people were running up the stairs, down the stairs, up the stairs, down the stairs, and we were weighing, and we were trying to organize different bags, and so there's a lot going on that night. So it's not just like a chill night.
Yeah,
it's pretty, bang bang.
Yeah, like they literally landed. It's like, let's get ready for the hike, right? And so again, that's not how we designed the trip, but we're like, okay, like we just have to roll with it. There's nothing we can do. It just is what it is. Like we gotta roll with it. So behind the scenes, we're like, okay, we got to try to figure out when we can squeeze in La Peninsula, because we didn't get to go that day. And that's one of our favorite things. We got to figure it out. So we were able to like work it out that we could do it on the last day.
Technically before our final dinner.
Right.
Which was another bang bang day.
Right. Which we'll get to. But yeah, so we were like, okay, we kind of got that figured out. All right. Like, let's just go. So and it's funny because we always say Patagonia, the weather is unpredictable. It really is. Like, you can have four seasons in a matter of, 20 minutes. It's very unpredictable. It's just this part of the world. It just, you expect it, right? Patagonia's weather is part of the experience. And even the last 2 trips that we ran here, we did experience that. Like, so we knew what to expect. Like, you get the wind, you get the hail, you get the snow, you get the rain. Like, it's this crazy experience. And so we thought we were like prepared to understand what Patagonia could throw at us. Mm-hmm. And we were very wrong.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's crazy because the next day, we get up early, we leave at 7 and we take off hour-and-a-half drive into the park, and we have to be at the Glacier Gray boat, which is a catamaran boat that some people board just for a day trip to go see the glacier, but that's actually our taxi to the beginning of the W Trek. So we go in there with our dry bags, our day packs, like looking like we're about to, go on a military mission, while everybody else is dressed in nice clothes and sitting on the, having welcome drinks and like things like that. We're like gearing up to hike 46 miles.
Yeah.
And so that's our taxi out there.
Yeah, that boat just like goes by the glacier, right? So you can like see the glacier and experience it, where we're like taking that over to go hike on this glacier and go kayak, right? Like, that's another
and
part.
It's the beginning of the trail.
Yeah, it's right. And that's like a huge part of our trip too, is like the Patagonian ice field, the southern ice field, is like the 3rd largest in the world, right? Under like
Greenland, Antarctica.
And so it's like really cool to be able to hike on it. It's just an experience. Like, when do you ever hike on a glacier? It's just such a cool experience. And that's how we start our trip. So it's super, super windy, which per usual, like you expect that in Patagonia. We're on the boat and it was rough. Like, I was throwing up in the bathroom. Another guy was throwing up from our trip, and you could just tell we're like, shit, dude, like, this is rough. And you have to cross this lake to get there. That's the only way you can get there. Mind you,
it's a lake.
Yeah, it's a lake.
I mean, it would feel like the ocean. Like, you feel like you're in the Bering Sea.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
It's insane.
So they ended up having to turn the boat around because they said it wasn't safe.
We hit one massive wave and everything. Glasses flew. The tip jar from the bar flew. Like, the food was flying around. People were like, ah.
Yeah. Which is funny because I was walking into the bathroom when that tip jar crashed and glass went everywhere, money went everywhere, and the girl was like, oh my God. And I was like, huh. Like, I wanted to help her like pick everything up, and I was like, I'm sorry, I'm throwing up. Like, I have to, like, so I just like, I was like, sorry. And then I just like ran in the bathroom and was just like puking my guts out. And then I came out and it had calmed a bit, and I was like, cool. I didn't realize they had turned the boat around. They did it when I was in the bathroom. So like, I'm like, oh, cool. And like, you guys were like, no, they turned the boat around. Like, we're heading back. And I was like, are you fucking serious? Mm-hmm. Like,
now, mind you, it's like a mile and something hike out to this boat.
Oh yeah, right.
So you gear up. You're a porter for the day. You're carrying all of your stuff, and you hike out. And then we had to hike back through those winds, and so that was like already like, welcome to Patagonia.
Yeah. So we're like, okay. We get back to like the little place where there's like a little restaurant thingy that you could go inside, before the boat. So like, okay, what's plan B? That's kind of where it started. And our hiking guide, Sophia, was like, these are the options, okay? There's a 3:00 boat that will try to go back to Glacier Gray, okay? If that boat does not go at 3 p.m. because of the weather conditions, then our other option is we have to drive about an hour, take another catamaran through another lake that isn't as exposed, so it doesn't really get
the boat's
canceled.
more powerful and small, so it can get through the nastiness.
Right. And then that will take us to our second night's refugio, basically. It's on the W Trek, and that's where we were sleeping on our second night. But the boat will take us to that refugio, so at least we can get on the W Trek, and we will either have to sleep there if there's room, because the thing with the W Trek is that all the refugios have to be booked in advance. Okay, so like our group stays are already booked. You can't really move things around. It just doesn't work like that. So she's like, if they have room and availability, we might be able to stay there. That boat doesn't leave until 6. So either we get to stay there and kind of miss the whole glacier, or stay there or make it, but then have to hike 7 miles in the dark to the original refugio. Those were the options.
Or go back to Puerto Natales.
Or go back to Puerto Natales. So we're like, and now mind you, this is what, 10 a.m.? So we had to sit until 3 p.m. again in this tiny little place and just sit there and hope that maybe the 3 p.m. boat would go, but everybody was like, that 3 p.m. boat ain't going. Like, we kind of knew it wasn't going.
Even the people at the place were like, oh, it's canceled.
Yeah, but there was nothing we could do because the other boat wasn't leaving till 6, so there wasn't another way to get over there. Like, there was nothing else we could do. So we were like, all right, like, we just kind of sat around.
They had like a place to get food. They had like a convenience store kind of thing, Cokes, beers, wines, chips, and like chocolates. And so we just sat there, and it was kind of funny. We all started playing like games. Everybody started coming up with like different little mind games that you have to like try to figure out how it works, which was kind of fun because we started off with Black Magic, and then we did the green tree, the green door, the green door, and then I can pogo, can you pogo, and like
those games were so hard.
They were
okay.
They were hard.
I'm just throwing that out there.
They were so much fun.
It was so fun, but it was so hard.
Yeah.
But yeah, we spent a couple hours just like playing games.
And then the wine came out.
Talking. Yeah. And it was telling because absolutely that was not how the day was supposed to go, right? We were supposed to enjoy this ride over to Glacier Gray, get there, go ice kayaking, through the iceberg, around the glacier.
Go up on the suspension bridge.
Yeah, which is a really cool view. Then sleep in the refugio and just like have this really easy but like introduction to the W Trek. That was the plan. Now we're sitting in this place playing fucking games. We sat there for 6 hours or more. Or yeah, I think it was like 5 or 6 hours. And so, but everybody, again, that's what I was getting at, is everybody was just like, hey, we'll figure it out. Like, it is what it is. It's part of the experience. And just positive attitudes.
Yeah.
Like, everybody
stayed fun, happy.
Yeah.
There wasn't pouty pusses, everywhere.
Like, let's make the best of it,
whatever. Like, let's chat. Let's do what we got to do. Let's walk around outside. Let's, eat some chocolates. Let's do whatever.
Yeah. So then 3 o'clock comes. Obviously, they're like, boat's not going. We already knew that because of the weather. It couldn't make it across. So we're like, all right.
So now on top of that, you got to think Sophia and them had to call our drivers back from Puerto Natales to come pick us up.
Yeah, which is like an hour and a half drive. So they came back. They picked us up. We had about an hour drive to like get the next boat. And they were able to arrange for us to sleep at this refugio. So we're like, okay, cool. At least we know we can get there and sleep there, because we were all kind of gearing up like, are we going to have to hike in the dark for 7 miles?
And on top of that, like once you get to the W, you're kind of in more control, right? There's no more kind of things that can be eliminated. You just have to walk through the conditions.
Exactly.
But there's no more like, oh, you're canceled unless they close the trail, which
they did. They did close the towers because of the blizzard, but not when we were on there. But there was only Right. You just kind of push through, you hike through, it's part of it. The only things that I cared about the weather is like, I don't care what the weather does. It could be anything we're going to hike. It's all going to be fine. But La Peninsula is weather dependent because if it's too windy, the boat can't go. And that's something we really wanted to do. The ice hiking and the kayaking. Those are the only things that were weather dependent. Mm-hmm. And so we were like, okay, we're staying we took the catamaran over, we got to the refugio. So then the plan became, tomorrow morning, we are going to hike down to the glacier, which is about 7 miles.
Mm-hmm. And the beginning of the W.
That's the beginning. That's where we were supposed to start. And then we'll have to hike back the same day and sleep in that same refugio again, because that was already like day 2. That's where we were supposed to sleep. So weather dependent, we can hike down to the glacier. We could still do the ice hiking if the weather was okay, and then hike back. So that was the plan. So at least like we were hoping we could do the ice hiking, but at least everyone could see the glacier, right?
And basically we were already explaining to the group that technically we're adding 7 miles to the 48 that we're about to do.
Yeah.
Because the hike back from the glacier to the other refugio that we had stayed the prior night was like Kim said, the second night. So we were already having to do that after the glacier hiking. But, I guess there's 3 miles on the glacier hike.
Yeah.
So we're tacking on 4 extra miles.
Well, right, because we didn't get to the part that we didn't get to do the glacier hiking. So we hiked down there, and like it's not, that section of the trail isn't really that challenging.
No.
It's like a pretty easy section, and we hiked down, and it's so windy, so beyond windy.
I mean, again, if we were in Florida, it would have been tropical storm warning, and everybody would have been going to the grocery store to get their water and their food.
Oh, 100%. So we hiked down there. It's super windy. And we were like, okay, we're clearly not going to get to do, because even with the glacier hiking, because the kayaking was out, we knew we couldn't do that because it was just crazy waves. It would have been like dangerous, right? Because we're like in the icebergs and that kind of thing. So we knew that was out. But then to get to the hiking, you still have to take a boat to get to the glacier. It's canceled because of the wind. So we were like, damn, like I felt super disappointed because that's such a highlight, and we've experienced it, but like they didn't get to experience it. And it just like really, I felt super disappointed by that.
Broke my heart.
Because it's such a fun way to kick off the hike. Because you're like, we just walked on a glacier, we just kayak through the icebergs, and then the next day you're like, let's go. Like, and so I felt super disappointed. And of course everyone's like, no, like there's nothing we could do. Like it's out of our control. And on top of that, that stuff's already paid for as well. And we don't get to recoup any of those costs.
No.
And so it's kind of just like, well, that was a fucking waste, like it just, I don't know. It just felt like really disappointing, but we're like, all right, is what it is, right? We got to go see the glacier. We got to like take some pictures, whatever. So then we're on our way back. So now we have to hike 7 miles back.
Well, and I mean, the whole day, it was just like the wind was in our face. It was kind of, it had a novelty to it, like, whoa, like this is crazy, right? Like, and then on the way back, you've already hiked 7 miles. It's already like late afternoon. You're already seeing the sun go down.
You're fucking tired.
You got 7 more miles to go. And then the wind said, oh yeah, you think that was bad? Like, here you go.
Yeah.
And then we were hitting like 70, 80 sustained with gusts up to 105.
Well, this is the crazy part, right? It was super windy. And now there are sections of that part of the trail where you're kind of like on the side of a cliff, right? Like you have to be very careful because
with 2 feet of passage.
Yeah.
Like 24 inches of like around a rock.
Yeah.
And the other side of the 24 inches is a cliff.
Right. So you have to be really careful. If there's not wind, it's like not that big of a deal, right? But there was one part, and it was like 4 of us that we were together up in the front. And like because you can hear the wind coming, like, you know it's coming, but you don't know what, like, when it hits you, like, how powerful it's going to be. It was so crazy, and we were all on this section of the trail that was literally on the side of a cliff. And so there's nothing you can do. We held on. Thank God there was like these like rocks that had extended out that you could like really like grasp onto. And we're all holding on, like looking at each other like, what the fuck? Yeah. Like just literally like our legs in the air, like we're just flying in the wind. And one of the girls was wearing a watch, and so she clocked.
Well, it was kind of funny because not 3 minutes before that, she was like, "Oh, we've only hit 95-mile-an-hour winds. Let's get up to 100."
Yeah.
And then literally 3 minutes later, the gust from hell came.
And she clocked it at 105, which is insane to think about, that we're hanging on to rocks on the side of a cliff, 105-mile-an-hour winds. Like, you don't know until you've felt that before, where you're just like, holy shit. And then like we got off the cliff, I mean,
I crossed, like I was first, and so I was hanging on and I kept looking, and I would like try to stand up, but then the wind would just keep coming. So then I would duck back down, and then finally I was like, I stood up and I felt it like go down a little bit, enough where I felt stable. And so I just like darted across and then started like reaching my hand as long as I was like stable to a rock to try to pull people. But then Kim was one of the last to go, and the wind picked up again, and I'm like crawling to like where she is, like reach out my hand. It was like something out of a movie.
Yeah.
I'm like pulling her across. It was, and then we got done. We're like, holy shit, dude.
I know, we all just looked at each other like, we're survivors. Yeah. Like, we just survived. Yeah. Like, it's not our time to fucking go. Like,
man.
So then, like, we're continuing to walk. There was one gust, and I'm sure it was, I don't know if I asked her what it clocked at, because at that point, we were just, like, expecting, like, crazy 100-mile-an-hour winds. We weren't on the side of a cliff. I was walking, and it pushed me down to the ground.
Yeah, because now it's at our backs.
Yeah. It was, because, like, you would get the gust, and you're like, woo, and you would kind of have to run forward. This pushed me on the ground, where I had to lay on the ground, because, like, I couldn't move. I'm like, this is some fucking crazy shit, dude. Like, you're just exhausted because you are battling this wind. You are battling, like, just the craziness of, and it was cold, by the way. And
no rain, though.
No rain that day, just the crazy, crazy wind. Even our guides, right? They hike this trail multiple times a year.
Years.
They're like, this is insane. And so the other funny part was, again, Patagonia, unpredictable, never know what the weather is going to be, just hit or miss. But last year, the reason I picked this particular week is because last year it was the most beautiful weather. And they say,
predictably, yeah,
the summers have crazy winds, right? But in the end of March into April is when the winds really start to die down, and you don't have these crazy winds like they do in the summer. That's their normal, right? But this week was the craziest winds that they had. And Sophia was just like, yeah, like, this is so unseasonable to have this kind of wind at this time of year. Like, this never happens. Even the blizzard they had, they were like,
every 10 years.
Yeah, they're like, this is so.
Yeah, because they're coming into winter. This is the beginning of fall. And so, like, they don't have it this early. This would be like, you know, Colorado getting a snowstorm in August.
Yeah, like, it's right.
Like end of August.
Right. It's just unseasonably just not normal for them. We're like, of course, like, you know. So anyways, this crazy fucking wind, we end up making it back, and it was just, so it was almost 15 miles, and you were just like getting your ass kicked the whole time. And so by the time we made it back, it was almost dark. Some people didn't make it back until into the dark,
like
which
8:30 p.m.
very dangerous in these kinds of conditions. We didn't have headlamps at the time because we didn't realize
we would take that long.
And thank God we didn't do the ice hiking. There's no way we could have done ice hiking and that hike, because like you said, the ice hiking itself is 3 miles. So like that would have been 18 miles. Yeah, just kind of a quick,
get on it,
yeah, in and out
around,
kind of thing. but we wouldn't have made it back until dark. I just don't think that it would have been realistic. But we make it back and we're all freaking exhausted, and we have dinner as we do, gearing up for the next day. We're like, all right, we go. Oh, and our dorms. So the refugio, so we sleep in dorms, right? Which is part of the experience. Like some rooms have 2 beds, some have 6, some have 4. So it just depends on what you get. Or you can sleep in a tent. But we were like sleeping in dorms at night.
Well, on the first night we had a 6-person, so we had 2 rooms. Because again, our refugio was supposed to be at another refugio. So they moved us and had these availability of these 2 rooms with 6 beds in them.
Yeah. And I ended up in the room with all the freaking snorers. And
you did? I did as well.
Which was crazy because I'm a really light sleeper. And I wake up very easily. I'm very just sensitive to sound and snoring, which is why I always have my fan app, and I even have this like special thing that I wear for these types of situations it's like a mask, but then it has these little speakers around your ears that I could connect my fan to kind of drown out the noise. That's what I've used in the past. Never had any issues. It was like so bad.
Rafters
were
rattling. It actually woke me up and startled me out of a sleep. Like I had fallen asleep in that first like 30 minutes, luckily, before the snores kicked in, and then they were snored so loud that it literally woke me out of a deep sleep, and to where it startled me enough that my heart started racing to where I could not fall back asleep.
Yeah.
And so now Kim and I are awake
just up
for the entire night, and until
we tried sleeping on the couch. We actually left our room, and so they turned the electricity off in the refugios every night, and it's cold, right? So they usually there's a fire, it keeps things warm. No fire, it's freezing cold. And we go and we're like, we just have to sleep on the couch. Like, what are our other options? And Aaron's literally sitting up in a chair trying to sleep. I'm laying on a couch.
But it's also in the route of the refugio where the bathroom is, both boys and girls. So it's like constant traffic going like at night. And so then people are like startled that we're sitting there.
Yeah, so then you feel uncomfortable. You can't really relax. And then we're like, are we going to get in trouble? Like, I don't know. So we're like, fuck it. Let's just go back in the room. And I literally did not sleep at all.
No, so then finally, like at 4, I just had a notion, and I just was on the top bunk, and one of the snorers was on the bottom bunk, and I literally just took my jacket and just kind of like rocked it until it like hit his face. And then I said, hey buddy, so I haven't been able to sleep at all, and we only got about 2 hours left until we have to wake up. Is there anything we can do? Maybe prop yourself up or something? Like I was about to ask him if he could just stay up for the.
Can you just like wake up?
You've had a solid 6 hours, okay? Like I've timed it. Can you maybe just go out and sit in a chair or something?
Like get out of here, yeah.
Maybe do some calisthenics, stretch.
Yeah. Get warmed up for the
get us ready for breakfast. I don't know, something.
It's
right?
time for you to go.
Yeah. And so by that time, the second snorer had stopped. And so in the downtime that he was trying to figure something out, God bless him. And of course his response was, I'm so sorry.
I know. And you feel, it's like, it's not his fault at all, but it's so, there's nothing more angersome than trying to be able to sleep and you can't because someone's snoring. And you like, I literally was like, I might just take my pillow and like lay it over his face, so at least I could get it like 20 minutes. Like I was hoping
one of the other girls
he stopped breathing.
One of the other girls is an advanced practitioner, and like we both were having thoughts like, could we just tube him like really quick and like put him on? I'll just bag him for an hour, and then like you sleep, and then like you bag him for an hour and I'll sleep.
I was hoping he had sleep apnea, which I don't think he has because he never stopped breathing. And I was just like, please stop breathing, because like you could go maybe a few minutes,
enough for me to close my eyes.
Right, and like maybe fall asleep and like.
Because I was tired at that point to where I would have slept through it. But
then it was just a long, exhausting night. So then
I fell asleep at 5.
I don't think I slept.
And the alarm went off at 6.
Yeah, 5:30. The alarm went off.
Yeah, so I got 30 minutes maybe.
And I think that's the other part too, is like when the next day we had a very long hiking day. And so when you know, you're like, fuck, dude, like, I got it. I didn't sleep. I'm so tired. And now I have to hike 12 miles to get to the next place. You're just like, dude, like, oh, it's like, just is the worst feeling. But it's crazy that the mind is so powerful that when you know you have to do something like that, there's nothing you can do. Like, you can't stay. You have to just keep going. Something happens where you just click in and go because you have to do it.
Yeah. There's no choice. It's kind of like when you're on call and you're getting called in all night long and you still have a shift to work.
Yeah.
It's like, there's no way in a normal period you would be able to do that, but for some reason you have no choice. So you just make it work. And it is not the best day, but it works. And you come home, you have your dinner, and you go to sleep. Like, it just is what it is. And you wonder, in hindsight, like, how did I even do that? Like, the body is so capable when you tell it to, when you allow your mind to say, I'm doing this, and so that comes out a lot. Your mindset is tested a lot in these conditions, which is
it's everything.
One reason why I love this trip so much.
Oh, yeah, 100%, because it really does, like, it's funny because someone texted, they're all home now, and he said, like, how do I explain that? I want my feet to hurt. I want to be in miserable conditions.
I want to hike 6 more miles for bad food.
Disgusting food, and, like, sleep in an uncomfortable bed, blah, 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 blah. And it was just like, that really sums it up, because when you're in it, it's hard, right? And you have to, like, mentally get your mind into a place to be like, buck up, you got this, you're gritty, you can do this, you're strong, and you just keep moving forward. And it feels hard. And you're like, why am I doing this? Like, why did I pay all of this money to freaking torture myself? But then when you're out of it, you miss it. Because there's that, like, we don't have cell service. We're not connected to our phones. We're just in this together as a group. Like,
some of the prettiest nature you'll see.
Surrounded by nature, surrounded by mountains. We're all just like, this is fucking crazy, but we're in it together, and we're encouraging each other, and we're getting through it together, and we're just present in that moment, right then, right now. There's nothing else we can think about. There's nothing else that we can do or needs our attention. We're just fully immersed in this experience.
One foot in front of the other.
Yeah, and you, every time we end a trip like that, I miss that. Even though I'm glad it's over, you still, like, miss just, like, the essence of what it is. Right?
It's a lot harder to transition back into normal life than it is transitioning into that.
Yeah. Oh, fuck yeah. 100%. It's, like, jarring, right?
Yeah.
So the next day, we're hiking, and now today is downpour rain all day long. Oh no, we had the beautiful morning.
That's right. Beautiful morning.
Beautiful morning. Rainbows, sunshine. We saw views, because that's the other thing. We're like, Patagonia is so beautiful, and she is, but we couldn't see it. Because everything, all the mountaintops, it's like clouded over. Like, you can't really see anything because of the clouds and whatever.
We were like, Patagonia is a land of rainbows.
Yeah.
And, like, there was just nothing. Well, we did have rainbows on the first day hike.
So the next morning, we're hiking out and up in, like,
the French Valley.
You can see everything. You can see the lakes. You can see the mountains, like, the rainbows, and everyone's like, wow, it's so beautiful here. And it's like, yeah, like, you could actually see everything. And we had such a beautiful morning. It was like the first 2 hours.
2 hours.
Was just perfect. Where it was warm, and we were like, you could just tell people, like, wow, like, this feels good. Like, we needed that after the first day. But then
here comes the rain.
The rain came, and it didn't let up. It was just nonstop, freezing cold rain. And, like, we had rain on our last trips too, but this was different. It was just, like, relentless. And because it was windy, it was, like, hitting you in the face, like.
Yeah. And so you're just, like, absolutely soaked. You're cold. I kind of slipped off of a rock and went into a puddle, and then, like, my whole feet were soaked. And so then it's like there was points where like I couldn't feel my toes, and like you're just like they feel heavy because it feels like there's just a bunch of ice in there.
Yeah.
And your fingers, and you know, it's just like one of those things where it's like, okay, like let's go. And so we had a portion of the group hike up to the French Valley. They got to see that, and then they came down while a portion of us went to the camp and kind of got set up. And that was a campground where we're in tents. So they're elevated tents, they're padded tents, they're nice tents.
Yeah, really comfortable.
They're not just like tents you pitch. Like these things stay all year long. They collapse almost like a camper, right? Like, and so it's a Chilean architect that is phenomenal. I don't know how he built that. Like when the wind blows, you don't feel the tent move, you don't hear it, like nothing. It's incredible. But with that being said, it's freezing cold. Even the Patagonian people were like, it is fucking cold. Like they were like running into refuge, they were putting heaters out, like they were struggling, and they live in this, right? And this isn't even winter. And so I was like, okay, I can kind of let off myself. It's cold. Like it is cold. It's freezing, right? It's borderline freezing.
No, it was.
But it's
freezing.
still raining, so it's not enough to snow, right? So it's like right at that, you know, maybe 1 degree Celsius, 2 degrees Celsius, and raining. And so like we had no refuge.
What do you mean? Oh, because of this. Oh, so right. So this particular campsite too is a place that like at the refugios you can come in. There's like places you sit on the couch. There's fires. It's indoors. You warm up. Like it just feels so good. This particular place did not have that. Right. We're in tents, so there's no escape. There's no like, ooh, let's just come in and warm up. So it's like the last place you want to be at a night like this. Like I wish we would have had that night when we were in the warm refugios. Yeah. But it happened to be like that night.
But it was the funnest night of the refugios.
So everybody comes into camp. We'll get there. Everyone comes into camp, like, and we wear rain gear, right? And everyone's like it had soaked through everyone's rain gear. So now not only are obviously their rain gear soaked, but their clothes underneath are soaked. It just wet. And again, at the refugio, there's fire. So we lay out all of our clothes, we dry our stuff. Like it's just, everything gets dry and warm, but like we didn't have that option again. So everyone's stuff is just soaking fucking wet.
Well, and you got to realize that you're also packed so light that's your next day stuff at some points, unless you have another outfit, right?
I wear the same thing.
Exactly.
Your layers you wear every single day. So like your wool layers and like your fleece, those are things that you are wearing over and over and over again every day. So all of that's wet. Your shoes are wet. There's nowhere to dry your shit. And the tents are freezing. Like there's no, there's no whatever. But again, they all come in, they went up to the French Valley. Aaron and I continued on because 2 of the girls weren't feeling well. So we continued on to the camp which
was funny because all they had was like a shed with 2 picnic tables, but the shed's open, but it's like covered.
Yeah.
So you're not getting rained on, but it's freezing. And so you're just sitting in there, and they did not allow check-in until 2:30. We got there at what, 12:30?
Yeah. 1? Yeah.
And so then the rest of the group shows up at 4. We had finally gotten the tents. I laid down for a little bit because I got settled in my tent, and then I hear everybody pulling in. And so then they're like, where's my tent? Like, give me my tent.
Yeah, they're all freezing cold. But again, they were like, they went up into the French Valley. And again, we've done the French Valley where it's sunny and it's just so beautiful. It's just absolutely beautiful. And we sat on the river and we ate lunch and watched the avalanches. They had a different experience because of the rain, but they were all like, that was awesome. Like, I'm so glad I went. Like, again, just like the best attitudes. Like this group out of every single group has had the best overall attitudes, smiles, just per person, everybody. Just because in the worst conditions, there was hardly any complaining. It was just smiles and like, this was awesome, this was cool. Like I don't know, it was really amazing to see that.
We got to Camp Italiano, and then you have to start the 3-hour hike up into the French Valley, and they were asking us like, well, what is it? And we were like, well, if you want to say that you completed the W trek, that's the middle of the W. And so they were like, screw the conditions. We're finishing the
doing the
W.
damn
And I was
thing,
like,
yeah.
dude, that's so sick. Like,
Hell yeah.
I love that mentality.
Hell yeah. Because I said, like, if this was my first time and only time hiking the W, I would go up and do that hike. I've done it twice. I'm good. I can go back with the other people who aren't feeling well. And what we thought we'd get them set up, but really that just meant sitting in a freezing cold picnic bench. But like, and they were like, okay, we want to fucking do it. And they did. And like, again, came into camp soaking wet. Everyone took showers.
So they had a big bonding experience.
Yeah. And it was a smaller group because 4 of us weren't there. And so like, it gave them a chance just to connect and like talk, and like things happened. And like, I don't know, it just like they had a really unique experience together, which brought them closer. Right. And so, yeah, that night, so they built this cafeteria that they didn't have when we were there last year, but it didn't open until 3. So we couldn't go in there, and it was the only heated place in the whole camp. And so that we went and had our dinner, and then that night we all hung out and like drank a lot of wine.
Yeah, we went and had like pre-drinks before dinner.
We got a couple bottles of wine for dinner.
Yep. And then bought a couple bottles, walked them down to the actual cafeteria, all ate in the cafeteria, then hiked that crazy hike back up because it's like down at the bottom. And then we all met in the cafeteria and kind of went a little crazy and like had a little fun, just letting loose from like all the craziness that had already happened.
Yeah, it was so much fun. So like, yeah, because again, there's nowhere to go, there's nothing to do, you're just all sitting in this little place like talking, drinking wine. Like other traveler, other hikers are in there, and like our
porters were in there. It was like a whole thing.
Yeah, that's something I do love about the W trek, because like in Peru you don't do that. Like you have your dinner and you're so freaking exhausted, and like you just go to your tent and go to bed. There's not, and you're at altitude, you're not drinking.
It's earlier wake up calls.
Yeah, we're up at the butt crack of dawn. It's a completely different experience. So like with the W trek, each night at the refugio, like you have wine if you want to. You don't have, or you know, and you just talk and you connect, and it kind of like brings you in and like bond you. And so we all just like hung out that night. The next morning I was like, fuck, I should not have had those last 2 glasses of wine. Like I felt hungover ish. Like I wasn't like throwing up and stuff, but I definitely felt it. And I'm like, okay girl, like you cannot do that, because I felt it the next day where I was
drank
like
a lot.
I was like, oh my God. And then again, you're waking up to go hike 10 miles.
Well, and it wasn't fair that that cafeteria did like a 2-for-1 deal on the beers. Because I mean, then it's like, ooh, I need to try to partake in this.
They weren't even BOGOs. They were just like cheaper price. We kept saying, oh, it's buy one, get one. It like never was.
It was buy one, get one for half off, basically.
It was like a certain price. And we were like, buy one, get one. Like it wasn't at all.
I have to buy 2 at all times.
Yeah. So we had a really fun night, and then the next day was another long hike, pouring rain again.
And that's like
even
our
colder.
Longest day. Like that is just, it's not that difficult of a hike.
Yeah.
I mean, it was more difficult than I thought, to be honest with you. I won't ever say that that's a flat hike anymore.
No.
It was what they call Patagonia. That's what they call it, because there's no such thing as flat. But it never was like a triggering day of like, this was the most difficult day, especially after the French Valley. And the first day we had, this seems like it's just a long walking day. It's where we cover majority of our miles. And
you can see the hotel there. So you, with the W trek, you can either start on the Grey Glacier side, which is what we do, and we end at the towers. Or you can start at the towers, make your way, end at Grey Glacier, okay? So a lot of people will only hike the towers. They're not doing the W trek. And there's actually like a nice hotel there that you can drive to, because technically it's the start of the trail. You can drive there, you can stay in the hotel, and then just hike the towers the next day and come back, right? So you can see the hotel, and our refugio where we stayed was next door to that. And it looks like, oh my God, we're almost there. But it's like a mirage.
You got like 2.5 hours
so
to go.
Far. And you're just like, are we there yet? Are we there yet? And this was just another crazy, rainy, freezing day.
What was crazy about that was the last 2 hours, it literally got down to freezing temperatures and was pouring wet rain, like pouring, like couldn't even see. It's hitting you. It's thick raindrops. It almost feels sleety. Like there's like a whole thing of like, it was at freezing temperatures, which we found out the next morning, which was kind of crazy because like we decided, since we found out that we had another 6 dorm, we decided to put our snoring friend into the hotel so that he could get sleep and not keep everybody else up.
Yeah.
And so he got a nice night in the hotel, a warm bed and dinner.
Lucky bastard.
Yeah. And so everybody was like, I snore.
I know, everyone's like, I snore. Like, Tay, I want to go to the hotel. It's such a nice hotel too, and he got like this fancy dinner.
Like we always joke that like we try to pop in there because it's the first stop off the trail, and we always go into the bathroom, and they're like, oh, the trail trash is here.
Yeah.
Like these are people that just do the day hike, and it's very expensive to stay there at night. And so like they were literally mopping the floor while we were standing there, and then like they brought out welcome drinks, and then the reception lady was like, them two they're not staying here, it's only him. And like the one girl's like, I don't care, like who
give
cares?
us the mango juice.
Give us
Do
the
you
mango
see us
juice.
right now?
Right. And so Kim and I went in to get all that set up, but like we warmed up a bit because there's fires, and it's like a nice bar, and everybody's wearing their like Colorado gear, right?
Yeah.
Like I mean the boot warmers and it's just like very bougie.
Yeah.
And so we rolled back out because we have a 20-minute walk, and I literally was soaking wet, went back out there, and that was probably the hardest 20 minutes of my life.
Oh,
like,
100%.
I was trembling uncontrollably, like to the core, to where like I could not think of anything else. I walked right in the refugio, went right into the shower, stripped down, took my dry bag into the shower with me, even my backpack, and was just like, hopefully there was hot water. Like I hope there's hot water, because they turn the hot water on at like 5.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Different times. Yeah.
But this one, like some of them you have to push a button, and then it basically spits out water for like a minute and then turns off.
Not even a minute.
Not
it's like
even.
20 seconds, not even.
So you have to keep tapping the button. This one was just a spigot, and
it's nice.
it said please restrict showers to 5 minutes, and I was like, fuck you, like I'll sit in here for as long as I want. Like I was diligent because I didn't want to take the hot water from everybody, but at that point it was like survival.
It was. And it's like when you're in that kind of a condition, like it's just, you look one foot in front of the other, and you are just like in a grind of like, I just got to get there. And there was one part of that trail that I was just like, this is so fucking miserable. And like, I was like mad at like the weather, I was like angry with Patagonia. And I'm thinking like, how crazy does that sound? But I was just like, enough, like enough. Like, what do you want from us? Like, what do you want? Like, we have tackled everything you've thrown at us. We are positive. We are getting through. Like, why are you doing this to us? And then I'm like, you sound crazy right now. Like, you're losing it. You're literally mad at the weather. Like, you need to get your shit together.
Some of us were just channeling Lieutenant Dan on top of the boat, like whenever the crazy weather, and Forrest says, I don't know what happened to Lieutenant Dan. He found God that day. Like, it's basically like, come on.
Yeah, it's like, enough. Like, enough. And also there's no worse there's probably many worse feelings, but when you're soaking wet, and then you have to take off your stuff to go to the bathroom, but then you have to pull it back on. And that's what I had to do in the hotel.
Feelings.
It was horrible because I was so cold, and then I had to like put back on all of my like wet layers. I will say though that my shoes were really waterproof, and that was like a saving grace because everyone's shoes were soaking wet, their socks were wet. For the most part, my feet were dry, even though I still had the blisters, my toenails falling off. Again, I think that
it's the way you walk.
I'm the problem. Because like the shoes themselves, I'm like, these were great. They felt comfortable, but it's got to be something about how I walk. Because no matter what, I get blisters. The same nail is falling off right now that did last time we hiked.
But this time it's actually falling off.
Yeah, it did last time too. It actually came off last time.
Oh, it did?
Yeah. But my feet were dry. That was like my only saving grace. But anyways, that was just like a freaking... Oh, and then that night, again, we're in the dorm, slept in the room with one of the girls who was sick. She snored the whole night. I was up. I don't feel like I slept at all on that trail, which I think because I didn't sleep, I did not sleep really for like 4 nights. And I feel like I started to kind of lose it a little bit. And I was like, really felt like on the struggle bus mentally. And usually I click in and like I just kind of find my flow and I feel great. But I really felt drained. And so it was like, it's hard for me to feel like I'm my best and I'm there for other people and I'm, making sure that I'm supporting other people. It's like, it was really hard just to like find that within myself. So then I'm like, I felt like I then wasn't like showing up for other people because I didn't feel like my best.
Well, and I mean, to be honest with you, it's like, yeah, you don't get the best sleep when you're drinking, but at least having a decent amount of like alcohol allows you to pass out through the snores.
That didn't happen for me.
That last night I was just tired from the day and then had like a couple beers and then it was just like enough to just like boom, like I was gone. But like it was restless sleep, but I was able to sleep, so then I felt good the next day. Which unfortunately you didn't sleep, which sucks.
Yeah, I didn't sleep the whole trip.
And so basically
but it just kind of became normal.
What was crazy was we woke up that next morning
to a blizzard.
It's our last day, but we had seen that there was 0 cloud cover, no wind, and so we're like, oh my God, this is shaping up to be the day that we're talking about. Like, so we wake up and we realize that 2 hours of that final hike, now it's dark, but that 2 hours of that final hike, which was bone-chilling cold wind and rain, turned out to be 6 inches of snow.
I don't know how many inches, but it was a lot.
It was a lot of snow. And so the entire trail the next day, all the mountains were just lit up.
We were like having breakfast and I was getting my coffee and I looked out the window and one of the girls was next to me and it was actively snowing and I didn't know it was snowing. And this is in the morning before we're supposed to leave and I was like, oh my God, like what the hell is happening? I had no idea. And she's like, oh yeah, we know it's snowing right now. And I was like, what? So then I'm thinking, oh my gosh, now we're gonna have to go hike in the snow. And it was supposed to be clear and all the things. But by the time we all gathered our stuff and the snow stopped. And it was beautiful because it was fresh on the ground, but it wasn't actively snowing. It was just like
the sun was out.
The sun
There was no clouds.
It was the most beautiful day we have ever
And I realized
had.
I had never hiked in fresh snow. And like without it snowing outside, it was actually like I had one layer on and it was warmer because it's one of the hardest hikes that we're going to do on this trail. And so we're going up. And so like you basically had like a long sleeve shirt and a heavy jacket and that was it. And like it felt so nice and light and like it was great. And plus we got to leave the majority of our stuff in our day bags because our porters weren't transporting. We were coming back to the Refugio. So my backpack was light and it was just like, it was just the smell of the snow and feeling the sun on your face and like some vitamin D and like beautiful mountains everywhere and trees and the fall colors. And like Patagonia is the only place I've ever personally seen snow with color on the tree. Like, usually they're all dead and it's just dead trees.
With snow.
This was like colorful yellows with the snow and the green and the evergreen trees and like birds were out. We had horses running by. We had, I mean, it was incredible.
Yeah. It felt like Patagonia had kicked our ass so hard that she was like, okay, it's your last day. I'm going to give you the most beautiful day you could ever ask for because even our guides were like taking pictures, like they had never hiked to the towers in the snow before. And they were like, this is so beautiful. And with the sun and everything, they're like, this is the most beautiful day we've ever had on the trail. There was no wind. It was just absolute beauty. And we hike up to the towers. And again, this is our 3rd time hiking this same trail. And it's the first time that Aaron and I, got to actually fully see the towers.
For a long time.
It was just
for an hour.
Beautiful. The sun was out. There was snow on the ground. The towers were there. Everybody got to see the towers. We had lunch there.
There was snow everywhere on the beautiful blue lake. Like, I mean, it was a vibe.
It was a moment. And then, people are crying and it's like, because you feel it was hard. What we did was hard. Mentally, physically, emotionally, you felt like you were getting beat down. And we made it, right, to that moment, to the towers. And it was just like, wow, like, we did this, like, personally, we did this together, like, and it's something that, again, we say, like, you go home and you tell your stories, right? Like, we tell our story on the podcast, we tell our story on Instagram, like, we tell our friends, our family, we all go home, right? And we share our story of what we did together, but nobody will ever truly know what that feels like, what we experience. Like, nobody will really get it. It's just us, just that core group of people that did it together will really know what we did and how it felt, and it's emotional.
It is, and it's like, they even said in the group that life-changing gets thrown out very, like, a lot, right? With a lot of different things, but that truly was life-changing, and we will be the only ones that know, which is why I absolutely love leading. And, it came to that, we got to the top of the towers, and there was a guy there who spoke English from the U.S., and we had just said, everybody was like, wow, like, it's crazy that you guys have hiked this 3 times and you're just now seeing the towers. And he was like, you've hiked this 3 times? Like, why? Like, we're like, oh, we lead groups. And he's like, yeah, still, why?
Yeah.
Like, this is crazy, right?
Yeah.
And so it was, Kim and I were talking about it yesterday. I was like, it's kind of a testament to, like, us, but it's not, because it's the energy of the group and seeing the emotion come out from people that have, like, changed their lives so that they can go on this hike and enjoy it, and they actually complete it, right? They set a goal. I want to get in better shape. I want to lose weight. I want to feel good on this hike, and I'm going to do it with an end goal in sight. And then they achieve it, and they rock it, and they get to that top, and that emotion just pours out. It's like, I would do this again for that.
Right. There's something.
And the camaraderie of the strangers turning to family and doing something hard together and getting through it. Like, again, I would do this trip again, right? Like, that's why.
I love all of our trips, right? Like, I love Bali. Like, we're going to be doing the Greece trip. I know that's going to be an incredible trip. But there's something about these hiking trips, right? So we've done Peru multiple times, 4 times. We've now done W Trek 3 times. We're going to be doing Everest in the fall. And there's something about these hiking trips that truly bond you. Like no other trip, right? And, like, one of the guys, he did Bali with us, so, like, he knew what Bali felt like, and then he did Patagonia. And he's like, dude, Bali was freaking awesome. Like, you have fun, the people were fantastic. Like, obviously it's a
culture,
completely different type of trip. Like, we get that. But he's like, there's nothing that, you're not doing anything hard, right, that, like, immediately bonds a group. It's almost like you like people or you don't. You have fun, but there's not, like, this, like, we did this together, right? Where this trip, it's like you automatically feel bonded in such a short period of time, because we're doing something hard and we're supporting each other and encouraging each other and laughing together and crying together. Like, we're bonding over the experience itself. And, like, that is why I love these kinds of hiking trips, because there's truly nothing like it. And that's why these trips, the people get very close very fast.
Yeah, well, it's like a personal belief of mine, and maybe if I don't explain this in the way, you can help me with it, but, like, there's nothing in this world, and this is where I might need help because I want it to land. Like, there's nothing in this world that is created for the first time, right? Like, there's patterns, there's templates, we're not reinventing the wheel, right? Like, there's reasons for a lot of these things. And if you look at patterns as much as I do and, like, really see, like, oh, that template worked for these people, and what is it about that template that works, because I can try to recreate that into, like, our groups. And there's no bonding better than military, firefighters, police officers, and go down the list, right? And why? Because they're in situations that normal people are not, and they look to their left, they look to their right, and they got their brothers or sisters behind them, and they conquer these things together, and it just bonds them. Like, there's nothing more than, like, a firehouse that, like, bonds over, like, a very serious situation that they helped each other get out of something and help save other people, right? Like military, same way, right? These trips by no means are on the scale of what those people see daily, but like it is a template of that, right? Like you're doing something harder than you normally do. Not too many people walk 48 miles in 4 days through treacherous conditions with the people behind them, and staying joyful and staying happy and talking and sharing and learning about people and their story. It brings everybody together no matter what your differences are.
Oh, 100%.
And I love that about Peru, Patagonia, and I know Everest, and then Kilimanjaro.
Yeah. I think there's a vulnerability that happens too on these trips. Like, I feel like it attracts a certain type of person because not everybody wants to do something like this, right? So I think if you sign up for a trip like this, you automatically have the mindset, the grit, the determination of like, I'm going to do this. I know it's not going to be easy. You get what you're signing up for. So I think there's that, but there's also a vulnerability that happens like on the trail too. I think deeper conversations happen. Like people are going through real life shit. Like, and they're opening up and they're sharing about things, and it like connects people in such a deeper way. Like, I don't know, I just feel like there was a lot of deep conversations and connections and life stories and situations, and like we're all just kind of there together supporting each other through all of it. And like we're having deep conversations and we're connecting, but we're also, you know, drinking wine and we're laughing and we're playing games, and like it's just such a beautiful experience, like truly. And I don't know. I felt like this was really challenging. And then even so, we get to the top and we are all like, wow, we fucking did it. We're all like hugging and we're crying and we're like, so proud of you, like we got this. But then we had to come back down, and luckily we had crampons because going down was so freaking hard because it's
the
like
snow had melted. And
it's straight down, a lot of boulders. And so it's very slippery too. So it was like, it took so much mental power and thinking of like, what's my move? Where's my foot going? What am I holding on to? Like, is this slippery? Is it not? Like, it was mentally exhausting.
Your muscles are sore from 4 days of hiking. Now you're going down steep and boulder and slippery.
Oh, you're just like, dude, I reached that point as I do, like when we're just hiking normally too, where you're like, okay, I'm done with the hike. Like, I'm good. Like, let's just get there already.
Can we just get a helicopter off this?
Yeah. And like one of the girls, like really, like her knee just gave out on her, which I've experienced that before. And it's the worst, it's the worst feeling because there's nothing you can do. And
especially when it's hurting so bad, it's radiating into your hip and your quad.
Like she could barely walk, and like we had to go down this crazy, like I said, this crazy bouldering thing, and we had miles and hours and hours and hours of hiking. There's no horses, no donkeys, no
4
cars.
hours of hiking.
There's nothing. You have to just keep going. And one of the girls is a nurse. She gave her a shot to like kind of like some for inflammation. She had like everything. She's like, what do you need? Like she had like anything you could ever think of with medicine. And luckily she had that, which I think helped her. But she was just it was really inspiring just to see her too, of like, didn't complain. I know it was hurting so bad. And she's like, I need to just be alone and I need to just get through this. And
Jorge was like singing to her.
She's like, shut the fuck up.
No, she said it was actually helpful. Like it wasn't talking conversation.
No, I know.
He was just singing and just trying to take her mind off of.
Jorge's one of our guides. But I know how hard that was for her because it was really hard for me. And I wasn't in pain like that. And so we get down, we finally make it, right, where you cross the bridge and we're all done, and like we're up on top of this hill, so we're just like waiting for everybody to come, you know, and like one by one people are like coming up and we're like hugging and high-fiving, like we knew we were done, like we were done. And like I thought she was going to be so far behind us. She literally was 30 minutes behind us with like a freaking busted out knee, just like
crushing it.
I was like, this group is so freaking awesome. Like it was like the grittiest group. I don't know. It was just the best freaking mindsets, and we did it.
Yeah.
We freaking did it.
And we had our celebratory night at Sierra Bagualas, and then everybody was just zonked. And so we had to wake up early because we realized that we fit in La Peninsula, which was so awesome. And as we're driving down, the weather clears up. It is a beautiful day. We get on the boat. We meet one of our guides, Alejandro, and then my new adopted dad.
The Donald.
Donald, everybody's daddy.
Well, everybody wants them to be his daddy, and also whether you're male or female, everybody wants to take a ride on the Donald because he's special. Okay, like he's the captain, he's the gaucho, he's cooking the lamb, he's riding the horses, he's freaking
shearing the sheep.
I mean, he doesn't speak English, and he's like wearing Levi's and like a cowboy hat and chaps,
and he like takes off on the horse to like wrangle the sheep so that we can do the sheep thing, and then he's down at the barbecue cooking up the lamb and sharpening the knives. And it was actually a funny joke, and I was like, I said something, and then one of the guys was like, he reminds me more of the Dos Equis, like the most interesting man in the world, right? Mm-hmm. And so he heard that, and he was like basically asked in Spanish, how does he become Tres Equis? Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, he doesn't have to become, he is. And so I'm like, okay, now I have my new wine or my new beer. It's going to be Donald's face, and it's going to be called Tres Equis.
Yeah.
And like, he's way better than the Dos Equis, interesting man in the world.
Yeah.
But I mean, this guy, he just has a demeanor, a confidence. He drives the boat. It's just, he does it all, right?
He's a true gaucho. Which is funny because I was like talking with the girls because like all the girls were obsessed with him. And you know, taking
this
all
has
these...
been this group and prior groups as well.
Right. Like every human we have brought to Patagonia is obsessed with the Donald. He's always there. Everyone loves him. And we were laughing. So I'm like, dude, like if we were home in the United States, right, and he walked into a subway in his normal clothes, like ordered a freaking Italian combo, like you'd be like, you wouldn't even look. He's an older man, like you wouldn't even look at him. You'd be like, cool, like doesn't faze you. But there's something about, again, the chaps, the cowboy hat, the riding the horses, he's like such a manly man. Like, you know, he's just gonna fucking throw you around and like, you know, like.
Well, I don't know that, but.
Well, I mean, you were thinking about it too.
I just want him to teach me all the things. Like,
you wanted him to be your dad.
I feel like he would be the guy that you're like, that's my dad. Like, don't fuck around.
Yeah.
You know, like.
Yeah, like you're gonna learn so much from him,
dude. Everything. Like, I mean, the fact is we were going horseback riding, and he was leading us, which never happens. Usually, it's like one of the interns or something that works on that peninsula, but he led us. And then there was one of the horses that they let out of the pen, and he wasn't working for the day, so he had no saddle on, nothing. Right? He was just loose, able to run, but he wanted to follow our group.
Yeah.
I don't know if he was trying to get with the other girls of the group, what was going on, but he
had FOMO.
He wanted to walk with us. Well, Donald and them didn't want him to. So they're chasing him through these trees, up and down the mountains, just yeah. Like, you're just like seeing like literally like, what's the show?
Yellowstone
in action, right?
Yeah.
Around these beautiful Sound of Music cliffs with the snow and the white horses, and we're all in line just riding, and like here's Donald just like
everyone was just like masturbating just, like while watching.
And then he just joins us back in line, like
nothing happened,
and like everything's good. But then this horse would just circle back around and get in line again, and then try to stay away from Donald. It was literally hilarious. I nicknamed him Rando. That was his name, just the random horse. And like, I'd turn around and there he is. I thought it would be somebody in our group, but it's just Rando.
He was always like 2 horses in front of me. Mm-hmm. He always, and so I was watching it from the back, and like, he would always come right back in that same position. And like, I was just like, I love him. Like, he doesn't give a fuck. He has FOMO. He wants to be involved. No one's riding him, but he still wants to hang out for the day.
Yeah.
And he just kept going no matter what they did.
He did the whole trail with us.
Yeah.
And he would trot when we would trot, and he would. So we get off the horses. They let us like have lunch and wine before the horses. Which is
so fun.
Which is amazing. And then we basically came back after the horses, and we asked the general manager, we're like, can we have more wine? And they were like, sure. Like, so they pulled out more wine. Then they gave us roadies to go home, so we all had like glasses of wine on the boat, and then we had our final dinner.
Well, so because originally that day was planned where it's like you wait. So this was like plan B. Like originally we were going to wake up at the ranch, have a slow morning, have coffee, breakfast, just hang out and relax together by the fire, and then drive back to Puerto Natales, have some time in town. And then we had like our wine tasting and dinner for that night. Like that was our final night's plan. But because of, like not being able to go to La Peninsula, plan B was like we left at 7:30 a.m. So it was like up and out to head to La Peninsula, got on the boat, went, which by the way was the most beautiful day. So again, we had the most beautiful day. Sun was out. It was kind of windy on the horses, but it was just the most perfect day to be at that ranch. Like it was incredible. So we had 2 beautiful back-to-back days. So we did that, and then we literally got on the boat, went, checked into our hotel room, dropped our shit. We're still
didn't even change.
We're literally all still in like trail clothes. Went just because we're like, let's just keep, like, we didn't have time. Like, let's just keep going. So then we went to our wine tasting, and then we went to dinner upstairs and had our dinner again, still just in our trail clothes. And then we ended up going to a local bar.
Well, one of the our guides at La Peninsula was like, you have to go to Slowly Bar. Like, it's a guy from England that's opened this bar. He's been here 12 years now. It's a local bar. And so we go there, and I see one of our guides from last year, like in the first place we were at. And I'm like, bro, what are you doing? Like, I've seen him the whole trip. I'm like, come hang out with us at Slowly. So he's like, all right, I'll head over there. So he comes over. We walk in and we look, and we're like, I think that's basically one of the main brothers, owners of La Peninsula, sitting there, named Ian.
He was just like watching us, reading a book.
He was watching us, and what was funny was he looked at my hat and he said, this would be a good group to go to La Peninsula. And so he wrote down Travsessed. He didn't see the T. And so Jacob started talking to him.
No, we went over and asked him if
Jacob
he was Ian.
was talking to him, and I said, I think that's Ian because Jacob's talking to him. And so Sarah was like, I'll go ask. And she's like, hey, what's your name? And he said, Ian. And she was like, it's Ian. And I'm like, no shit. So I walk over, I'm like, Ian. And he was like, are you Kim and Aaron? And we're like, yeah. And he's like, oh my God, I wrote down on my phone that I was going to reach out to you to say, why don't you come to La Peninsula? But then you were there today, and you come every year. And like,
yeah.
So he ended up hanging out with us. And then one of the gauchos from La Peninsula last year, who showed up at Sierra Baguales, shows up in the bar. He said he was looking for a quiet Tuesday night out, and walks in and sees our group and was like, oh no.
Yeah.
And so like we had the whole bar with the locals, and then all the tourists are looking at us like, who's this group?
Yeah.
Right? Like hanging out with all the local people.
We had
and it was just
so much fun.
So much fun. Of course, tequila shots, and on top of like...
Well, listen, we drank wine the entire day, okay? Yeah. And that, because we had our first glass of wine probably at like 11, like, or 11:30, 12 with lunch. Mm-hmm. So we started drinking wine. We drank wine the entire day, and then we did a tequila shot at the bar, and then I had a tequila drink, and I like fully just expected, I surrendered, like, I'm going to be hungover tomorrow. It is what it is. It's our last night. I'm going to be hungover. I don't care. And I like, we stayed out till maybe 12:30 or so, went back to the hotel and went to sleep, and I like opened my eyes the next morning, and I'm like, okay, how do I feel? And I like felt okay, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna go to the bathroom because it's gonna kick in. I like went to the bathroom. I'm like, okay, like I didn't feel great, but I didn't feel like hungover. Mm-hmm. And then I kept waiting for it to happen, and I was like, not hungover.
Which is crazy because the group left at 12:15. We had breakfast set up at 10. Some people wanted to go out and explore and see if they could get some souvenirs. So they left early, and then everybody was getting on the van. The van was being there to pick them up and take them to the airport, and then Kim and I were getting on a bus and cruising to Argentina.
Yeah, right. So it was like, just like go, which let's save the Argentina stuff for like the next episode. We'll just like go all into that. But like to round this out, like, yeah, they left, and again, it's always so bittersweet because you're like, okay, I'm ready to, whether it's go home and get back into your routine, or for us, we are continuing to travel, and like, you're together. It's so immersive, right? Like you're together like every second of the day, and you're kind of like, okay, like I'm ready for just like alone time and to just like do our own thing and to wake up and have coffee by myself and like not have to be in the group. And so you're ready for that. But then there's also that like sadness because you're like, it's almost, I can imagine how it would feel to like be parents and have kids, and it's like it's chaos and it's loud and it's the kids are running around, and then all of a sudden it's just quiet and you're like, this feels, even though you want it, you're like, this feels weird. Like it's just you and I again, and we're like the kids left. You know, we're like, what do we do without the kids? I don't know. It's just like this. It's a transition. It is a weird feeling. Like I genuinely like miss everyone. You know?
No, totally. And I think, you know, you and I realize, just like we do in every trip, there's a lot of things we learned on this trip. There's a lot of things that we had to deal with for the first time that will help us in future trips. I think every trip is a learning opportunity for us, and we absolutely love that. Not only the camaraderie and the people and the specialness that each group brings, but just like what it does for us personally in growing Travsessed Adventures, and what we would do different and what we would improve on, or what we would do the exact same, what we are proud of that we handled behind the scenes or things like that. So I think, you know, this really brought a lot to light. I think, you know, we're not sure if we'll do another W-Trek trip.
I won't.
It might be this is basically what we're doing now, is researching a possible highlight trip, which I think will be really cool because it allows us to control a little bit more of the conditions, and not just have things go up in smoke when the wind blows in and the weather's so bad. You know, and it'll give people a nice little highlight that if they ever wanted to bring other people back and hike the W for themselves, that's what they could do, or hike the O. But just giving people a nice overview of the cool parts of this area. And I think we can do that really well now, that we know it so well. And we know all the things that could possibly go wrong.
Well, right. It's like, I would say that was our 11th trip, and for the most part, of course, there's always things going on behind the scenes that Aaron and I are like, oh, okay, like, cool, like, we got, like, this will be the plan B for this, because, like, you know, whatever, things can happen, right? And they do happen. But for the most part, out of the 10 trips, things have gone very smooth. Like, we have a really good system. And again, we do all the work and stuff ahead of time with the details and logistics. And, like, we really put a lot of time into that, where we want it to feel smooth and seamless for our guests, right? And so, like, that's been our experience for the most part. Maybe a couple like clunky things here and there. This was the trip that everything that could go wrong did. And we had never really experienced that. We're like, wow, okay, like, we can't do this, like, this happened. And it really was a backup plan for every single thing. And we learned a lot from that because we had never experienced it.
Well, and usually we can say, if this happens, we will do this. This was, if this happens, we could possibly do this, we could possibly do this, or we could possibly do this. But we still don't know the in-between that's going to lead to what decision that has to make, and we have to make that on the fly. We're usually on these trips, we're like, oh, okay, cool, like, this is plan B, we're already done, so if this shows up, boom, we're in, and that's what we'll do, and that's perfect, and that's able to be done. This was like, there was 3 things that were still out there that might work, might not work, I'm not sure. We might have to go home. Like, who knows? Like, it's just this weird thing, and I think it allowed us to be able to think on our feet, think clearly, move smoothly, and I think the group helped with that because of their attitudes.
Oh, 100%.
I mean, if there would have been, like, negative Nellies upset, that would have just created a completely
different vibe.
Totally. So it allowed us to be at our best, which was nice.
Yeah, 100%. Like, overall, crazy trip, amazing group. Like, people, like, I literally met lifelong friends, which, again, it's funny.
Every time.
We always say that. And I think some people could think it's like some kind of shtick that we say, or like
they do
a marketing thing or something, right? Because it sounds so like, oh, like, come as strangers, leave as family, blah, blah, blah. But, like, it really does happen. And you can't explain that unless you've come on a trip. Then you see it in action, and, like, you get it and you feel it. And, like, there's real friendships that are created. Like, 3 of the girls ended up leaving together and going to Santiago,
which was not planned in the beginning.
Which was a plan, and they didn't know each other at all. And again, it's not like every single person becomes best friends,
no.
But you have within the group these, like, beautiful friendships and connections that do form from these trips, and people who come on the trips that are like, wow, like, that is true. Like, it is true.
And we do get the comment, because we ask a lot of questions now, because I want to know, like, it's from our travelers that I get the best answers, right? Like, and a lot of them, like, I've heard a lot of good things. That's the reason I came, but I still didn't know. And then now they come on the trip and they're like, now I know every year I'm going on a Travsessed trip, guaranteed. Like, it's just, I'm looking at your website first to see what trips you have, and I'm planning my year around that, which is absolutely amazing, but they didn't know coming in. And so it's about like really slowly growing that so that people do feel like, wow, I know what I'm going to get when I get on this trip, even if they don't know us.
Right.
And I think that's my goal, is to really try to like get that out there so that people do know when they come to our website and they book that trip, there's an excitement there that they know what they're going to get.
That it's going to be freaking awesome.
Totally.
One of the girls was like, she booked this trip. She didn't know us at all. And she was kind of on the fence because you just don't know, right? And like, so she booked it. And she's like, I really wanted to do Everest. But I was like, let me do the one trip and see how it goes. But she's like, this is so freaking awesome. She's like, I'm so pissed that I didn't sign up for Everest because now we don't have any spots left. She's like, I wish I would have just done that because this is like the best trip I've ever been on. Like the coolest people. This is amazing. So she's like, please, if there's anything you can do, like I'll do anything to try to get on the Everest trip. So we're going to try to see if we can add one more person on. It just depends on if we have room or not on the helicopter. But again, it was just like, she's like, I wish I would have known how freaking cool these trips were because I would have just booked the ones I wanted to already.
Even in those conditions.
I know, and that made me feel so good that I'm like, okay, like, because again, it's not about me or you. Like, I want them, the people who've come to be like, yeah, that was like really shitty weather and stuff, but like I still had a really great time, and I just hope that everybody got what they needed from the experience, whatever that is, because we all have individual reasons of things that we're looking for, or clarity, or things that an intention we set for ourselves, and like that everyone was just able to get what they needed from this trip and had an amazing time, even though it was a crazy experience. And I think people did. So anyways, I think we'll want to leave it here, and then we'll pick up next week. Like we said, we're currently in Argentina, so we'll kind of talk about that and some stuff going on there. And we'll leave it at that, and we'll be back from Argentina.
Patagonia 2024 in the books.
Oh, and can I just say, but like, we're still in Patagonia. So Patagonia is the most southern part of Chile and Argentina. Okay, so we're currently on the Argentinian side of Patagonia. It is the most beautiful,
gorgeous
weather. We were hot. I had a t-shirt on and a jacket, and we were warm yesterday.
Yeah, no wind,
which is insane.
Beautiful sunshine.
I'm like, I don't know if it's always like this or it's just kind of like this everywhere right now. It is the most insane, beautiful weather I've ever experienced in my life.
And we're going to have beautiful weather continuing through the time we're here.
Yeah. All right. We'll be back next week with more Argentina. Thank you for listening. You can follow us at Kim and Aaron G on Instagram. And we will see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.